for today's session you join me on peg 40 on Gold Lake. It's an ideal peg for me to come and fish a long pole towards an island, which is a subject that we've not covered for a while. If we do catch some fish here on the long pole, they're going to be big carp, maybe an odd skimmer, but you're fishing for big carp. And it does play a part in a lot of commercials up and down the country. Why a pole? A lot of people say to me, why not Under Armour method feeder or even a straight lead? I'm talking about accuracy. I don't want to foul hook the fish, but more importantly, here at Gold Valley and a lot of other commercials up and down the country, when you're faced with an island, you're also faced with the problem of getting cut off on a method feeder. There's rocks being exposed, there's bricks, little bits of slate, and this can be a real problem. You can get the bite, and even if you get the fish, your main line can be affected. With the pole, you don't have any of that problem. You can hook the fish, keep the pole up, steer it away from the island, and away you go. Obviously, the only problem you've got is, can you reach the island or not? Here you can reach the island with about 15 metres, and I'm going to plumb up and fish just up the left-hand side of it as I look at it. Today I'm going to be fishing with micros and corn. Again, we're only just getting into the warmer months, so the ground bait and maggot approach is still out a little bit. They've got a good taste for micros and corn because it's been used quite extensively all the way through the winter, and it is a bait that the carp recognise. Again, we've got a nice variation in depth on this peg. I could fish in a foot of water, or I could fish down the bottom in 5 foot. I've plumped for about 3 foot. The water's still quite clear. Like I say, it has warmed up, but the temperature's still just on the downside. So I'm just going to edge my bets and fish in 3 foot of water. If I do start foul hooking fish, I can always go in the shallower water. It's a bit borderline to whether they'll turn up today. It is a very good peg, and there have been quite a few fish feeding as late. So like I say, it's not quite like fishing for F1s or small carp. We're fishing for big fish. We're going to be putting in a volume of bait. I'm only fishing a 4x14 float. The elastic is a black hydro. I've set up 2 duplicate rigs. Black hydro again. Red and purple hydro is more for the warm months when you're catching lots of fish. Today is about trying to get them in our peg, trying to hook them and get every single one in. There are some very big fish in Gold Lake, in excess of 30 pounds. So like I say, we might have our work cut out, but it's about using a slightly softer elastic and trying to get them all in. The main line's 0.20, the hook of 14, and like I say, just a small bulk, and we're going to be fishing in 3 foot of water. As far as how I'm going to feed it today, it really depends on how many fish turn up. If there's just very, very odd ones, I could be kinder cupping corn. If there's quite a few, I could be topping up with 30, 40 bits of corn and a little dusting of micros as we go along. It really is a case of just seeing how the day progresses and exactly what turns up in our swim. When you're faced with a variation of depth, it's really important. And here at Gold Valley, I know even in the summer, 3 foot is a fantastic depth of fishing. It's not like we're fishing for small carp or small F1s. We're fishing for big proper fish, and they do need a little bit of depth just to upend in and feed in. And 3 foot, in my experience, is a fantastic depth to start in. I'm now going to show you one of the rigs that I've assembled for today's session. As I've already said, black hydro. It's still quite strong. It can give the fish a lot of stick, but it's on the softer side. It's not like the red or the purple where you can really bully them. This is an elastic where I can just hook them, let them waddle off, and try and get every single one in I've hooked. Just a little note, you'll see I've got a little bit of electrical tape about 1.5 inches back from the tip. This is a fantastic little tip to give you. If your pole pots are a little bit loose and they slide too far back, you can just put a couple of wraps of black electrical tape round just to build it up, and then your pole pot will sit very close to the end of your tip. As you all know, I'm a massive lover of accuracy, and this just aids you in your accuracy. Now, I'm a real lover of using back shot now, and you can see it just enables me to use a slightly longer line. When I'm shipping out to a distance and I don't want to be getting tangles, a slightly longer line is going to help me do that. Problem is, with a slightly longer line, you're not as accurate without the back shot, because you can't drop the float directly down under your pole tip where you've plumbed up and obviously where you're feeding. And the 2 back shot allow me to do that, and also hold the rig very still with that slightly longer line between tip and pole float. The line today is 0.20 direct, and I've got a small bulk. I've got 4 number 8s and a tuning style there, and then coming down to the hook, it's a size 14 Gamma carp. Again, slightly smaller than say we'd use in the margins in the summer, but a fantastically strong hook. Everything's just geared down a little bit. The top that I'm using today is a big bore power top with the elastic through a conventional 3, even though there's only the 2 sections, but it's the same length as a conventional 3. Again, just to give me that extra strength, extra bit of stretch and a little bit of security when I'm hooking the fish. Again, I've plumbed up along the left hand side of the island and I've come away a little bit to find the depth of around 3 foot. It's a fantastic depth to fish in, and like I say, if these carp do turn up and have a go, I know that the big fish, the double figure fish, like to feed in 3 foot of water. So hopefully, as the day goes on, we should hook some decent fish. The bait's pretty simple. I've got micros and corn with me today. I'm going to kick the day off with about half a pot of corn and a dusting of micros, and then just see what happens. What is good here is if they do turn up, you can quite often see a little swirl or just a tail pattern. I'm a little bit concerned because the water's quite clear and the nights haven't been that warm, but Gold Valley doesn't normally let me down. It's a fantastic peg to come and show you how I fish a long pole against an island for decent sized carp. The bait I've brought to today's session is quite simple again. We've just come out of winter, fish have got a real taste for micro pellets and corn. I bought quite an amount of micro pellets. These have been soaked in water and left for about 3/4 of an hour just to absorb the water. They're a nice heavy bait. They're going to go straight to the bottom, not be kicked up by any fish. You make sure that you soak them well and they've got that real heavy feel to them. That way they don't get ruxed up when the fish actually arrive in your peg. Sweet corn again. Pick out the nice big bits for the hook. A real heavy bait, a visual bait. It really lends itself to this time of year. Coming out of winter, a lot of corn's been used. The water's still on the clear side, so again, the yellow colour, it's a fantastically visual bait, one that the fish are really used to. Obviously, as the season goes on and it warms up, ground bait maggots, luncheon meat, things like that come into it. But I like to go with the baits that I know are working here and that I know are catching fish. And today's more about looking at the depth of water, the feeding pattern, and how I go about catching these carp fishing long to an island.
Will started the swim off, introducing a couple of pots containing corn and dampened micro pellets, taking care to ensure it went in exactly where he had plumbed up the rig. He baited the hook with a single grain of corn in through the top and out through the side. Laying the rig in with care ensures it settles in the correct place, right over the feed. Fortunately, this fish holding feature already has some residents in town and ready to dine. A liner was soon followed by the clean hooking of carp number 1. As expected in a swim like this, it was a decent stamp fish. The combination of strong gear coupled with a smooth and steady technique soon had the big single tamed and in the landing net. A good start, but this is a sit and wait patience game, so another cup of corn and micros went in. The interesting thing is that there were very few nuisance fish around, and so it was easy to sit with the rig in position, knowing that the next bite should be from another decent carp. The wait for that bite wasn't too long in coming, and Will lifted into another carp that produced a positive indication on the float. A similar, unhurried approach to landing this second fish saw another near double end up in the keep net. A fourth carp wasn't too long away either, and by the end of the first hour of fishing, Will had struck into his fifth carp. A big ghosty common well into double figures, and topping a first hour where the accuracy of the patient feed and wait tactics were pulling together, as Will explains.
Well, there we go, there's the fifth one. Real decent fish. Good 14, 15 pound. The average size of them in here now is absolutely massive. See a lovely big ghosty common. Good 15 pound. You don't need many of them to really bump your weight up. That's why presentation and accuracy of feed is absolutely massive. See that I'm topping up with a little ball of micros and about 50 bits of corn. Reason for this, a lot of people say, oh, why aren't you fishing with a kinder pot? But it's quite simple. When I've fished for these big fish with kinder pots, one, you don't often feed enough, and two, when you fed, you're quite often in on the bait too early, and that's when you can foul hook them. Just a little delay between feeding, shipping back, putting a bit of corn on and shipping back out with your rig can just be enough sometimes to let the fish absolutely settle. Really can make a massive difference. And what I do when I'm fishing like this is I don't actually rush to get back out. I rush to get the bait in, like now, nice and accurately, in line with my marker. But what I won't do now is rush to get straight out there on my bait. I want that to settle. I'm not worried if I go in slightly too late. But what I don't want to do is go in too early and foul hook that fish. There's not millions of fish there. You don't need hundreds. You've seen the size of the fish. We got 5 fish for probably £50 already. And it really is a case of just taking your time and letting the fish settle. There's nothing worse than going in too early, foul hooking a fish. Then you have to go through the whole process again without obviously landing that fish. You can see there I've got a nice bulk, 4 number 8s. Again, that coupled with the back shot, I can position the rig really quickly in the right place, and if I do miss a bite, I've only missed one indication here. They're big fish, they come in. As long as you're fishing in the right depth and you're presenting it right, you're not going to miss many bites and you're not going to foul hook hardly any. It really is about setting the trap and sitting and waiting, being patient, being accurate, like I say, using your far bank markers, and really just being patient and waiting for those odd real fast bites off those big fish. One of my friends drew one of the corner pegs a couple of matches ago, and I was actually sitting there watching him, and I said to him, when you feed, he was had a real big problem with foul hooking the fish, and I said to him, when you feed, just give it 2 or 3 minutes before you actually go in. And he went on to win the match. Didn't foul hook anymore, just letting them settle over that bait. It can really make a massive difference. People are sometimes too eager. They want to catch the fish too quick, and you don't need to. Slow down with these big fish and just make every single one count. Give them a little bit of time to settle on the bait. You can quite often end up with a far, far bigger weight at the end of the match than if you're rushing around trying to maximise the time that you're in the water. Really is a case of just a bit more cat and mouse. You're not looking to catch hundreds of fish. I love this style of fishing because you catch 15 fish in a match and you're going to be there or thereabouts. Got a fish for every fish. Once the rig's in position and the float's directly under the pole tip, if you ever think that it's just gone out or drifted out, here we've got quite a strong backwind. All you can do is just lift the float, and because it's quite a heavy float and you got the back shot, what will happen is the rig will just swing back into position directly over where you've plumbed up, more importantly where you've fed, and you can just hold it there. Sometimes you just get the feeling that it's just drifted out a bit, and just by lifting the float 4 or 5 inches out of the water, it all just swings back vertically underneath the pole tip and bang on the fed area. While we're waiting for the next bite, it's a brilliant opportunity for me to tell you, why have I fished in the place that I have? And 99% of that is obviously through depth. I know that in different times of year, different depths of water work. This time of year, 3 foot is an absolutely fantastic depth to catch these big carp in. They're happy feeding there. The water's not as warm as it will be. It's not as coloured as it will be. And 3 foot is just a fantastic depth. And over the years, I've kept mental notes and written down notes in my books at home about different depths. And it's how often 3 foot comes up this time of year is frightening. So like I say, it's a brilliant gauge to have that in your head as a depth to start in. Also today I set my float for 3 foot, plumbed up, and there was a lovely flat bit just off the side of the island where I'm actually fishing. So it's happy days really. The worst scenario is if you go to your peg and you can't get in the depth of water that you want to fish in. Then you've got to be even more mindful of the fact of fishing accurate, fishing right on top of your bait, and trying to look around the whole of your peg to get the correct depth of water to fish in. Because if you get in the wrong depth, it's easy to foul hook fish, not get many fish in your peg, and really make a right mess of what could have been a good day. Depth of water is absolutely vital. It's as important, if not more important, than feeding. Those days when you've had a nightmare, when you've foul hook fish and you've lost fish, it's quite often because you're not in the right depth of water. Absolutely paramount importance to get in the correct depth of water. Not just when you're fishing for these big carp, but when you're fishing for F1s, when you're fishing for smaller carp. You really have got to keep some notes, mental notes and that, of the correct depth of water to fish in. If you can get in the right depth of water, you're not going to foul hook many fish at all. When you talk about feeding, especially against islands for these big carp, for me accuracy is the key. Yes, if I loose feed or spread the bait out, I might get more fish in my peg, but I'm not going to be able to catch them because they'll be all over the place and I'll really suffer with line bites and foul hooking the fish. So it's a case of just trying to catch one at a time. Feed, sit and wait, catch a fish. Feed, sit and wait, catch a fish. That way you really do eliminate any of the problems that you can get as far as foul hooking fish and almost getting too many fish in your peg. Like I say, it really is a case of just sitting there and waiting, catching a fish, then reset the trap and start waiting again to try and catch another one. That's how I like to fish. You've seen the size of the fish here, not just here but on a lot of commercials. You don't need many carp these days, and it really is the best way to fish. Through trial and error over the years, I've really found that that is definitely the way to fish. You could loose feed a bigger area. Yes, you'd get more carp in your peg, but you'd hardly hook any in the mouth. And that's when you get in real problems. And you can really blow what could be a match-winning peg. Obviously, if it was really warm and there was a chance of catching them shallow, then obviously loose feeding would definitely be in my armoury. But when you're fishing for these big fish this time of year, try and catch them one at a time, try and set a trap, sit and wait, be patient, and just pick them off one at a time. Because if you start introducing a volume of bait in a big area in that shallow water, you really are asking for problems. Obviously in today's session I've just fished exclusively towards the island. Obviously in a match you might only fish it towards the end, or if you had a nice wind and you could see fish moving there, you might fish it all day. There are other methods that you can use in conjunction with the pole, but most of the time if the conditions are right, either the wind's blowing in or there's fish moving, then obviously start on it, and sometimes you can fish it all day. Predominantly it's towards the end of the match, a bit like edge fishing. The fish will come in and start mooching around in that shallow water, and that's when you can really put a weight together in these sort of pegs. Like I say, the weather has turned. It's still relatively cold last night, and I'm quite pleased with the amount of fish that we've hooked in this depth of water today. And it just goes to show that accuracy, not just of feeding, not just of plumbing up, not just of rig positioning, but all three put together can make a massive difference. Not just to your catch rate, but the actual fish landed. You've seen the size of the fish that we've caught today. It's very important to be hooking them properly and landing every single one. And if you get one of the 3 steps a little bit wrong, you can end up having a nightmare and foul hooking these big fish. And it's very rare with these big fish that you're going to get them in if they're foul. You'll end up playing them for hours and hours and probably losing them at the net where the hook hold just is a bit weaker. And if you can hook them in the mouth, like I say, you still end up playing them for a little while, but they're much more manageable, and also they cause a lot less disturbance to your swim. So like I say, really take your time with plumbing up, with feeding, with rig positioning, using a slightly bigger float, 0.4, 0.5, quite a lot of lead on the line. That way it's easy to position the rig. Just try and make it easy for yourself. Keep the depth in mind. If you see someone catching in a certain depth, keep that depth in mind, even measure the depth. That way you can have a real good mental guide to what depth of water you want to be looking for. Too deep and you can end up foul hooking them. Too shallow and you can end up not getting many bites at all. The right depth, however, and you can end up catching a lot of fish, and more importantly, catching a lot of fish properly, hooked in the mouth. You might have noticed as well the strike is just a nice lift. There's a few reasons for this. One, the black hydro is more than enough to pull that hook into a carp slip. And two, if I do start striking a lot harder, I can strike the bait off. Obviously it's a long way to come in, rebait, go back out, and that fish that I've missed an indication of could easily have been gone. So just a nice positive lift up is more than enough with that nice elastic to set the hook. And like I say, more importantly, you won't be striking your bait off and having to come back and rebait. It's about being fast and efficient. It's also about being patient and controlled.
Do you apply back shot differently to the rig shot?
No, just the same. Just the same.
Do the back shot represent a weak spot?
No, I've not had a problem with it, you know, ever breaking there. It's no weaker point than you know, where your bulker shot is, and I can't remember the last time I had a rig snap on the bulk or anywhere near a shot, really.
Do you notice the back shot when holding the rig?
The only time I really notice it now is when I don't have a shot on, a back shot, because I know that I don't have the same control over my rig.
Do you have the back shot a set distance apart above the float?
No, just a nice spread. You don't want it too close, because if you relax a little bit, it can pull your float under, and obviously result in you striking at false indications and maybe foul looking a fish.
Do you affix the back shot when rig making?
I do it on the bank, because obviously you're going to be cutting your rig down to the desired length, you know, depth and everything. I don't want to put any shot on until I've got the rig the right length, and then I'll put the shot on. There we go, we got another one. Had a tiny little indication that I didn't strike at about 20 seconds before. I just lifted the rig, repositioned it so I knew it was right on top of my bait. That little indication told me that there was a fish in the area, and I just wanted to be absolutely smack bang on my bait, not even run the risk of foul looking it. So just lifted with that rig, it just swung back into position perfectly. Been there about 30 seconds and rocketed under. Really is a massive advantage using a decent sized float. Anything airy fairy, you just can't relocate as easy and as quick. And these carp, I'm convinced they come in your peg feeding, they eat everything and go. And you've really got to be on the money when they're in your peg. You get a liner, even if you lift and drop, just strike, put it back down, a heavy float relocates, not just quickly, but it relocates in exactly the right place quickly. And that's, like I say, 2 or 3 times today I've had a little indication, relocated the rig, and bang, we've got one. And more importantly today, we've not foul hooked a fish, we've not lost a fish, and that is what you're looking to achieve. You're looking to achieve, you know, not missing many bites, not losing any fish. If you can do that, you don't need to hook hundreds. Quite often I get asked by novice match anglers about how you go about catching these big carp and catching a big weight. is something that they've never really achieved. The one thing you've got to have is the right gear, the right floats, the right elastic, the right hooks, the right line, all coupled together. Put this together and obviously you're halfway there. Then you need to look at the depths you're fishing in and obviously go out and practice, and there's no need to be scared of it. Like I say, a lot of the floats you can buy, the hooks, the line, the shot, the elastics, they're all absolutely A1 and they're not going to let you down. So it's a case of just getting the right gear first and foremost, and then going out and start trying to understand little things like we've done today. Really zone your accuracy in with your feeding, your plumbing up, your rig position. Then obviously it goes on to thinking about depths and various different things. But the one thing you shouldn't be apprehensive about is actually catching these decent sized carp on your fishing gear. Like I say, get the right gear and you're halfway there. Well, there we are at the end of the session. There really has been a few carp about. We've caught fish up to about 15 pound and we've caught a real good weight of fish. Like I say, keeping everything nice and tight, thinking about your fishing, thinking about depths, and again not putting too much strain on the rest of your peg, leaving a bit of area for the fish just to mill around in. Too many people, in my opinion, on a lot of commercials put stress and that on the whole of their peg straight away at the start of the match, and it is really the worst thing you can do. Think about your depths, think about your presentation, even when you're fishing long. You know, it is of utmost importance. It's the kind of fishing that I really wanted to show you today, because on a lot of venues when people would normally fish, say either a bomb or even a pellet feeder or a method, they do get cut off and they do have problems with it. And I think you've seen today, we've not lost a fish today, we've certainly not been cut off. We really have maximised the peg to its full potential. Fishing that long pole, as long as you can get in the desired depth and at the right distance, fishing the pole is definitely a massive advantage to me. You've seen the size of the fish with the right gear, fished in the right depth and in the right place in your peg. You hardly miss a bite, you don't foul hook any fish, and that's what you need to achieve when you draw a peg like this. You know, not just here at Gold Valley, but a lot of other commercials. The top anglers, they don't make mistakes. They fish in the right place of their peg on the right method, and this is why they're hard to beat. And hopefully today I've shown you exactly how to go about tackling an island peg like I have today. Because of the number of fish we managed to catch today and the size of them, I'm not going to get them out. I'm going to swim them down the net and we can have a look at them as we let them go. So there we go, we're going to let them go. Some real big fish in there, big commons, big mirrors. See the size of some of them. That's why you don't need many. You get your feeding right, your plumbing up and your accuracy right. You don't need many fish to put together a match winning bag.